Muted.
Hello and welcome. This is the Wisconsin PBIS Network Technical Assistance session for Tier 1 on setting up your acknowledgement system to work for all students. And this is Michelle Polzin and Amy Tranel, and we are here as technical assistance coordinators to give you a brief overview of all of the pieces necessary to have a well-developed acknowledgement system within your Tier 1 PBIS system. First of all, in looking at the tiered fidelity inventory, which is one of the newer PBIS assessments on PBIS apps, feedback and acknowledgement has some critical features and evidence sources. And so what we're looking for is a formal system that's a written set of procedures that has specific behavioral features, and it's linked to your school-wide expectations, used across settings and within classrooms, so it's connected, and it's in place and used by at least 90% of a sample of staff and received by at least 50% of a sample of students. And you will know this by using the evidence source, which is the TFI walkthrough tool. And there are directions for how to ask those questions of staff and students so that you can do those calculations. And then that gold standard, which would be a 2-point response, would be that 90% and 50% that was talked about in the features. One of the things that is found through Polzin's research all the way back in 2002 is that we do a whole lot of acknowledging of inappropriate behaviors and not so much for appropriate behavior. So the inappropriate behaviors tend to grow because we are shining our attention onto those behaviors, and kids get a lot of reinforcement. So, you know, going to the counselor, being sent to the office, or having after school with an adult, all of those things involve getting additional attention from us. And so that's why you do see more negative behaviors growing when we pay more attention to them. As for the appropriate behavior, we're really not very often letting kids know that we appreciate that they're doing things the way that we expect them to do. And so a lot of times we either just give them more challenging work or free time, or we just don't acknowledge it at all. What we really want to see is a higher ratio of positives to correctives. So instead of 1 positive to 20 negatives, we'd rather see 5 positives to every 1 corrective. So take a moment to think about, in your school, where people are at in their thinking about acknowledging students or providing rewards or rewarding language for students doing what's expected. So some people might think we should not reward kids for doing what's expected. They should just do it because it's expected. You may have some other staff that think rewards ruin intrinsic motivation. And we do have a lot of research that says that that's not really the case, that we cannot judge whether or not intrinsic or extrinsic reward or acknowledgement is better than another kind of acknowledgement. It's up to the individual as to what actually is reinforcing to the person receiving it, not to the person delivering it. And then you may also have staff, hopefully a majority of staff, thinking that we should reinforce the behaviors we want to see, that we teach those behaviors and we teach other academic subjects and let kids know when they're doing those things right and correctly, and we reinforce them for high levels of effort. And so why wouldn't we do the same thing for behavior? In other words, our beliefs drive our practice. So if you have a number of staff that are more in the category of that first speech bubble where it says we should not reward for doing what's expected, how likely is it that that's driving practice? And so our whole staff has to get on the same page and have that common vision around why we're doing what we're doing. So I would encourage you now to pause the recording for just a moment if you're watching this with a group of people, your team, or perhaps some other staff, and have that discussion. Where are we at in terms of what our beliefs are in our building, and how is that driving our practice? Okay, Amy, I'm going to hand this over to you now.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so we're going to be moving on now and talking about the purpose of the actual acknowledgement system. And you see the sun with the flower, and we want you to think kind of that grow light. What you focus on tends to grow within your building. So if you have a belief that drives your practice that you want to focus on those positive behaviors or the behaviors that you are teaching as a part of your school-wide PBIS, then those are the behaviors that we want you to provide specific positive feedback to and to continue to acknowledge. The likelihood of you accentuating and reminding and providing feedback and acknowledging those positive behaviors increases the likelihood that you will continue to see those positive behaviors within your building or within whatever specific environment, such as the hallways, cafeteria, or even in the classroom through which you're teaching those specific skills. So it isn't just about wanting to increase the likelihood that we see those positive behaviors that we're teaching as a part of our school-wide systems and as a part of our school-wide matrix, but we also want to increase engagement with our students. And it's important that you take a look at your acknowledgement system that you are creating and ensuring that that acknowledgement system is something that is valued. So if there's something that the students are earning, or if there's a way that the students are being acknowledged specifically, that you are able to get some of that student voice and choice involved within your acknowledgement system, that you listen and you find out what's important to your students, what's relevant, what do they value, what's of interest to them. If the acknowledgement system is based on something that your students really don't find to be very relevant and is not of value to them, it won't be as motivating and serve the purpose that you're looking for it to serve. You also want to be sure that your acknowledgement system is consistent. So that gold standard says that acknowledgement system is used by about 90% of your staff, and about 50% of your students have received some level of acknowledgement. That means that the majority of the staff within your building, the adults within your building, are consistently, predictably using that acknowledgement system to reinforce and provide feedback to students. At the beginning of the school year, throughout various times of your school year, as you're using data to determine which skills may need to be retaught, or if you're doing some type of mid-year boosters, or again at the beginning of the year when you are teaching the skills that you want your students to demonstrate, you need to make sure that you are flooding the students with feedback. So you want to ensure that students begin to understand that those are the specific behaviors that our teachers want us to demonstrate in each specific environment. And the best way to be able to do that is to provide high levels of very predictable opportunity for feedback for students. And as we'll mention in a moment, as you grow throughout the year, you'll be able to provide some gradual release of that level of flooding of the acknowledgement, which is what we call faded. So after students have demonstrated that they are fluent in those particular skills, and remember we're looking for about 70 to 80% of our students demonstrating that they are fluent in those behaviors. Some students will possibly need more opportunities for feedback and acknowledgement. But once we have noticed that in general our students are responding and they seem to have caught on and they're demonstrating those skills, then we move into maintenance, where we are just looking at our data to help us determine where we need to support students. Do we need to reteach those behaviors? Do we need to flood with some certain amount of acknowledgement? Is there a booster, or are there some students that are demonstrating that they need additional support? So a way an acknowledgement system works, and these are just some general guidelines for that acknowledgement system, it's important to remember that acknowledgements are school-wide, which means that every single student in your building needs to have equitable access to this acknowledgement system. We can't just acknowledge the students in our dominant culture and population that demonstrate the behavior that we want to see. We have to ensure that all students have access to it. And we want to move from that high-frequency, predictable, tangible towards more low-frequency, unpredictable, social. So for instance, if you were a classroom teacher and you were hoping that your students would acquire the skill of raising their hand and waiting to be called on instead of blurting out answers during a particular time within whole group instruction, the teacher would want to teach that skill and provide very predictable feedback. In fact, she might even at that time, when she gives that very predictable, verbal, specific feedback, offer some level of tangible. In some classrooms and in some schools, their school-wide acknowledgement system includes a ticket or a piece of paper or a token of some sort that is the indicator that opportunity for that teacher not only to be prompted to remind them to provide that feedback, but also as a way for that student to link and begin to intrinsically remember, yes, when my teacher asks a question, she wants me to raise my hand and wait to be called on. And when she does that, I'm going to get that very specific praise coupled with that tangible token that will remind me that that's what she wants to see and increase the likelihood that I continue to do that in the classroom. So we want to move from every time I raise my hand and wait to be called on to less predictable opportunities where I might individually, tangibly get that acknowledgement ticket in the beginning. We might want to move to a more classroom goal where perhaps the reward at the end of that or what we earn together as a class is social. So maybe that's an opportunity for us to have 5 minutes at the end of the class for social time, for some conversation. Maybe it's an opportunity to play a classroom game. Maybe it's just some independent choice time at the end of a unit or a quarter, whatever it may be that the class determines would be a great opportunity for them to celebrate their success in acquiring those skills. We do also have an acknowledgement matrix. This is something that I will show you in just a moment how to locate this on our website. It may actually be a hyperlink as well, but I'm not necessarily sure I remember, Michelle. But this is an opportunity for your PBIS leadership team to get together and really think about their school-wide acknowledgement system. Think about the immediate high-frequency predictable opportunities for students, whether those are gotchas or paws or high fives or tickets of some sort, and what those look like. Think about what that might be for both students and for the adults, when they can get them, where they will get them, who can provide those to them. And some of those acknowledgement systems then also have a redemption of those types of tickets, and they also may feed into a longer-term school-wide celebration that may also be contingent on a data point where maybe the team itself is working on a reduction in office discipline referrals, or there's some level of a school-wide target that's being met for a specific behavior that's being worked upon. So sometimes schools have those where individual students can earn tickets that feed into a classroom goal, that feeds into a school-wide goal, that feeds into a celebration of some sort where all students in the building are able to participate. Michelle, would you want to add anything about the acknowledgement matrix itself?
Not really. We do have some other examples of completed acknowledgement matrices on our website under the resources for Tier 1 tools and resources, just on our, not on the training website, but under the actual resource library for coaches. There are those examples, because there are different formats that people may like better than the one that we showed here.
Okay, yes, because this would be an example, but this might be something that gives an opportunity.
Yeah, that one's a little more simplistic.
Right.
So people might like that.
Yep, I'm going to close that out. All right, so you did reference just a moment ago, Michelle, that we do have some resources that are on here, and that does include the Acknowledgement Matrix. So what I'd like to do is just walk everyone through where to find these resources. So specifically on this resource side, and these are all hyperlinks, we do have our classroom management modules, which are on our Wisconsin PBIS network website. I will show you those in just a moment. We also have some live links to some specific articles on acknowledgement. And we also have our Tier 1 training materials, and I will walk through those as well. So if we go to our website, and this is the Wisconsin PBIS Network.org website, and you go to our hidden link, so /Tier 1, it takes you to all of our training materials, including developing a recognition system where you can find the specific PowerPoint for that section, and you can also find the acknowledgement matrix, so that blank matrix that we were just referencing a moment ago as a part of this online TA. And this is a great exercise for the team, again, to be able to sit down and really think about the types of acknowledgement, so the different layers that they have within their acknowledgement system, and also not just thinking about students, but how they will work in acknowledging staff and providing feedback to staff and helping to support them, not only with implementing the acknowledgement system, but also for thanking them for being on staff and being a part of our positive school culture. So we have that, and then so there are also quite a few resources on here for low or no cost recognition ideas for both students and for adults. Often I do get that question, how do you acknowledge adults in a way that is inexpensive or in a way that doesn't break the budget, or sometimes they'll say we have a budget for students but not for the adults on our staff. How can we make that work? So it's always great to be able to go onto Google. You can certainly find lots of ideas on Pinterest as well, even no-cost ideas, as a great way to recognize both students and staff. I also mentioned that on our website you can find our classroom management modules. If you go to the search button at the top of our homepage, you can just type in classroom management modules, and you can find them. You can also find them by going under educators, PBIS in action, and then classroom management. There's actually several ways to be able to get to these modules rather quickly. These are an excellent resource for any staff taking a look at not only acknowledgement but just their classroom systems in general. There are knowledge surveys for your staff to be able to take. There's actually 3 separate modules. There's one on rules and routines that also helps classrooms develop classroom matrices. There's the acknowledgement system, and then there is the consequences system. If you click on one of these modules, and I think it might start talking to me, so I'm going to make sure to pause this.
There you go.
Yep. There are different sections to each of the modules, and you can either listen to that, but you can also find the actual PowerPoint under the resources and additional information here that's very helpful for the different activities. If you wanted to do this as a professional development with your staff, there are different reflection pieces. It's just a wealth of opportunity and information for you to be able to find in terms of assisting your staff through professional development on each of those different pieces of classroom management. There's also a training supplement on implicit bias, which I have heard it has been very helpful to some of the schools that I have recommended that to as well. And again, you can also download that as an acknowledgement system PowerPoint if that would be valuable for your staff too. Would you like to add anything to that piece, Michelle?
No, I think we're set.
Great. So again, my name is Amy Tranel, and I'm with Michelle Polzin. And if you have any questions for us, certainly feel free to contact us. You can find us as regional coordinators by clicking on that. And I am in the South region. Michelle, you are in the East region, and our names and contact information are right here on the side.
So with that, we'll say thank you for watching, and please tap into the other short webinars on improving your TIP 1 system. Thank you.